Hi, everybody. Well, we're going to do it a little differently this week. Welcome, everybody, to the Jason and Bart Show. I'm doing Bart's part today because about 10 seconds ago, as happens, even though this will be released about a week from now in real time, Bart had to evacuate. The fire department said he had to go. So he got up and went.
He went.
And
He
now
followed
Mark and I are here, both slightly terrified for different reasons, and we're going to talk.
Just wanted to tell you guys that there was no fire. I'm okay. Now back to the show.
So let me introduce today's guest. We're super excited to have with us. I wrote this bio for him and his company, so he can definitely course correct wherever I lead him astray. But from very humble beginnings, Mark began as an intern in the year 2000. Today, 23 years later, he and his current team of 35 experts have worked tirelessly to build a proven, tried and true curriculum for their clients that instills the strategy, technology, and habits required to transform your marketing firm from something you feel guilty about to a critical life force that is constantly fueling your firm's growth. Tell me about it. Today, Mark is the CEO of Newfangled. And while not everybody may know who Newfangled is yet, they know who you are. They know you want to market. They know you believe in it. They know you think you should be able to do it on your own and feel at least a little bit guilty that you haven't. Or maybe you have. You've definitely tried. Well, you've tried marketing through content and email and social media, and none of it has worked. And the worst part is you really don't know why. The good news is Newfangled does. They do know why. They know how to get you where you want to be, and they understand just the decisions that you made leading up to where you are, but why you made those decisions in the first place, helping them course correct very quickly for you. And they would love to talk to you about all of that. Newfangled is based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, although I believe it is a distributed or remote company. Yep. Although we will not talk about hybrid work today, Mark. We will not. But yes, everybody, welcome Mark O'Brien. Hey, welcome.
Wow, that was quite the intro.
I don't know, man. How did I do?
I think you did pretty well. I mean, you were generous, so I'll take it.
Oh well, it's easy. No, we're really super excited to have you here today. I know when we had spoken a while ago about having you on the show, you really were excited and passionate about talking about MRR, monthly recurring revenue, and certainly a topic that I think a lot of agencies and owners and operators of agencies certainly looking to grow and scale. Definitely a topic they should be knowledgeable about. Just really briefly before we get into MRR though, because I wanted to ask this so badly. Most of the people that we talk to, most of the clients I have, or the guests that we have on the show, tend to be founders and CEOs of their companies. Your journey is so different, as I mentioned, sort of from intern to CEO, right? I just am so curious, and I bet the audience is too, like, can you just take maybe 5 minutes and talk a little bit about like that journey over the 15, 20 years, whatever it was, between the internship and you taking over the company?
Yeah, sure. And yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm very sorry that Bruce can't be with us. Like, that was weird. we were about to hit go and he got a call and they said, you got to get out of that building. I hope he's okay.
Me too. We'll see how fast he can move. That's the
right. So this is great. And, Jason, you and I go way back, and that's why I was excited to hear whatever I didn't want to send a bio. I was excited to hear whatever version you had of Newfangled. And yeah, you did a great job. So thanks for that. Thanks. The nutshell story is, I decided at the ripe old age of 16 that I was 100% going to cook for a living. I fell in with this amazing little Italian restaurant in Danbury, Connecticut, where I grew up, and like they saved me in a lot of ways. Like a lot of ways that my life took a real serious course correction right when I met those people. And I just loved it. I loved it so much. I didn't want to go to regular school. I wanted to go to culinary school. My mom made me go to get a 4-year degree, and I worked in restaurants, full time all through high school, all through college. It was about 12 years all in that industry. And then, of course, like very shortly after graduating college, realized, oh, this is not what I want to do for a
Right.
living. This,
Everybody should do retail or hospitality, but not too long, right?
yeah. It is a young person's career. And that's what I realized, like, all right, this is not gonna wear well. This is, fast forward 15 years, like, because I'd always known that I wanted to have a family. When I was young, I wanted to be a priest, but I didn't want to be a priest because I wanted to have a family, and I knew I was raised Catholic, and I knew that I couldn't do that. And that was like the real decision point in restaurants too. I was like, this is not a family conducive atmosphere. And obviously, some people do it, and
Yeah.
for some people it works out great, but like the odds aren't good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was 23, and I had my first midlife crisis. Now there's a thing called the quarter life crisis, and that's 100% what I had. That didn't exist then, but
Well, at
like,
least there wasn't a marketing title for it.
yeah, right. There wasn't marketing. Yeah, I didn't know about that, but it was like all the things. I was like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do with my life. I was terribly scary, honestly. I knew I had to get out of cooking, but I had built up a really amazing career in that, and that's a fun story for a different time. And I was actually working as a bellhop in addition to 2 restaurant jobs at age 23, 24. And the bellhop job, man, you ever want to be motivated and really figure your stuff out and like figure out how to have a career? Go be a bellhop.
Yeah.
Go do that. Go sprint for cars in March in sub-zero weather, run through sleet and snow and every junky thing for like a bunch of businessmen who need their Ford Focus pulled around the corner. Ooh, that will motivate you. That will freaking, literally $1 at a time, $1 crumpled up dollar bill at a time. And man, that was humbling. That was really, and I didn't grow up rich or anything like that. I grew up in a 1,200 square foot house. My dad had an awesome job. He's a chemist. He's, provided a great livelihood for us and all that. We weren't poor, but we weren't well to do in any way at all. But really, my mom made an awesome home. Like that was her thing. She loved that. Yeah. So anyway, I was scared. I was legitimately scared. But it was the year 2000, as you mentioned. And my good buddy who had grown up with Chris Abernathy, he was born a geek. He was born a geek. He got his first computer when he was 8 years old in 1983. Okay. Not many 8-year-olds had a computer, their own computer in 1983. It was who he was. It's who he still is today. And so it was 2000. It was the first half of 2000. And he's like, man, you get a job, you making 40 grand a year writing HTML like tomorrow. Cause like, there's massive developer shortage. And to me, 40 grand a year was like $10 million. That was an unimaginable, literally an unimaginable amount of money. When you're sprinting for dollar bills, 40 grand is just inconceivable. And I was like, and I didn't know anything. I didn't have an email address. I didn't know anything. I was a Luddite. I was not technically savvy in any possible way at all. And I was like, okay. And so, anyway, we built a website for the restaurant I worked for. Then he's like, oh, that New England company that's on the corner in Providence. I was in Providence at the time, the New England company. And I was like, oh yeah, that New England, that's like the web thing. And I walked by it the next day. It wasn't New England, it was Newfangled. And so I went to the website, and I spent like 3 hours writing this giant contact form, like just begging for a job, not even a job, just begging to be let in the door, and like submitted it wrong. It didn't go through. So I did the whole thing again. And then at June 15th, we're coming up on the anniversary, June 15th, 2000, Eric Holter, the founder of Newfangled, he said, come on in, we can talk. And he offered me $10 an hour for as many hours as I wanted. And I remember walking around Providence, quitting all 3 of my jobs that afternoon. I left that office and I quit all 3 jobs. And it was one of the greatest days of my life. I just remember that feeling. I can feel it in my heart right now, the way that felt. It was just like, I felt like I won the lottery. And you know what? I did,
Yeah. And then what did that look? So you started in the internship, and then how long, I guess, between the internship and when you started as an employee, and then what role did you have there, and what did that look like?
Yeah, so it was $10 an hour for, and I was like HTML basic and lots of like image editing in Photoshop, just like really, it was early web dev stuff, not even dev. And then he hired me, like I became official about 2 months later. Interestingly, a month after that, David Baker shows up. So I met David right at the very
Early
beginning of my
on.
career,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
beginning. And Eric hired him as a consultant.
Mhm.
And he came in those days. He used to come in, he'd show up on site and interview every single person. And so I met him like month 2 or 3 of my employment at Newfangled. And the next day, only half the company showed up because the other half was fired.
Mm.
Because that's what David told Eric to do.
Yeah.
And he was right. The company was in dire straits financially, and he was like, if you don't do this now, like it could just be gone.
Right.
And I was like, why am I here?
How did I make it through?
The guy with no skill.
They were like, so cheap. There's so much value with this guy. It doesn't even matter.
Right? That was
Will work hard, is smart, and is cheap.
Yeah, it was like perfect timing. Like Rob Hart doesn't believe in luck, and like here, okay, Rob, here's
right.
luck, man. Like I showed up at the exact right time, like wholly unplanned, no strategy involved at all here, just like grit. It was just straight grit, and then yeah, once I got in there, I was like, I'll do anything. I'll anything. And so I had proven that like I was a hard worker, and like yeah, I guess I was smart enough to pick things up quick enough. I wasn't a genius, but I was competent. And what David told Eric was that I was too cheap to fire. It's like that guy, like what, $10 an hour, like fire him, keep him, doesn't matter.
Right.
So
you're going to have an existential crisis with or without him. So might as well have him with you.
This guy will neither make nor break your fortune. So, but that turned out to not be true because Eric got paid, Right. So anyway, long story long, I get into more stuff. I start, getting to PHP. Then I really get into sysadmin, and I'm our sysadmin all of a sudden. And this is like, I'm fast forwarding like a couple of years here.
Yeah.
But then I decided to move to North Carolina. Newfangled was a very, very much a local firm. Like all our clients were in easy driving distance. Many were in walking distance. And we would just like partner with local agencies and local businesses, that kind of thing. So the agency thing was always there. And decided to move to North Carolina. I was like, I'm gonna move, but I would love to keep my job. And that was like a radical idea then. Like there was no work from home. There was like that was not a thing in 2003. No Zoom. And he said, Eric, Eric was a visionary guy. He was wonderful. He's like, yeah, cool. Like let's do it. He said, but if you're gonna be down there, like might as well knock on some doors. And so he then started taking me on his sales meetings with him before I moved. And then I came down here, and I was one of our 3 developers. I was our sysadmin. I was our main project manager. Right. And then I had this like sales thing, and it became real apparent really quickly. Like, oh, that's what I should be doing. Yeah. Right. You can write some code, but why don't you just go talk to
generate
people
revenue?
And Eric thought it was ridiculous. He couldn't believe it. He's like, you actually like that? Like you like he hated it. Everyone in the company, we had been, at this point we're around 8 years. We started in 95. Everyone who'd ever been there, just like that was literally the last thing they wanted to do in the business. And I was like, this is a blast. Like, I love it. So that's when everything changed. That year. So that was 03. And like, I really got my traction. I moved in the fall of 03 and 04. I took over sales completely. That was our best year ever, 04. Mm-hmm. The next year after that was like 150% improvement on that. And in 04, I became president. Once it became clear, like, okay, this is like really work. And then he made me president. In large part, he made me president just because like he wanted me to have the authority in the sales conversations. That's really why he did it. Mm-hmm. He didn't realize at the time, nor did I, that president's actually above CEO in the hierarchy, in the corporate hierarchy. Right. I never pulled rank on that. I wouldn't. Yeah. And so that was great. And I was still doing all the other roles too. Like I was doing many. We were like 7 people at the time. Okay. Yeah, that and I really did start to run it in a lot of ways then. And Eric was a classic, and he's still alive. I'm saying was, but in the context of Newfangled, he was a classic entrepreneur. Like he had all these ideas, like let's do that thing, let's do that thing, let's do that thing, let's do that thing. You know, he's just an idea guy, and he had a lot of really great ideas. But I was more of like like let's get good at this thing guy. And I kept saying no. I was like, well, you know, it's your business, you can do what you want, but like here's why I think we should not do that, and we still need to get good at this thing that we're really not quite good enough at yet. And he realized I was right, not every single time, but oftentimes. And he just got frustrated. And so that kind of dynamic, and he was cool about it, but he was personally frustrated. And so that kind of dynamic kept building. In 08, he decided to like create a spinoff that's just a consulting firm. And so here comes David Baker again. He goes to David for consulting. David says to him, okay, you're going to do this thing. And it sounds like you want to do like kind of full time. So what's up with Newfangled? And he's like, oh, Mark's, you know, pretty much running that. He's like, well, tell me what Mark does. He's like, da-da-da. He's like, all right. David said to Eric, like, here's the deal. When you get back to the office on Monday, you're going to do one, two things. You're either going to sell him the company or you're going to fire him because he has way too much control, and he could royally screw you because it's his company, and he could just take it over. If you were that kind of guy. I never had that thought. I never had that thought. So he there's in the beginning of 08, very, very beginning of 08, he asked me to go have coffee. He said, you know, you want to buy it for like roughly 1x last year's sales, ballparky? I was like, I have no money. I have no idea how to do that, but hell yes.
Right. Of course. And then 7 months later, the financial crisis.
7 months later, exactly. Good tracking on that. Yeah, exactly. So we had to figure out how to do a buyout with no bank funding and all. And we did. And so starting January 1, 09, I was the CEO. It was technically my company. I had a mortgage on it, you know, but it was my company. And yeah, it's been an amazing.
That's an amazing story. That's an amazing story. Yeah. I thank you so much for sharing, because it's so unique. We will not hear that story repeated, I don't think, from a lot of other guests. So that was really cool.
Sorry, it took more than 5 minutes. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Again, so we wanted to talk a little bit about MRR, and before I got to jump in with some questions, I guess, what was it about it for you that was a topic that, you know, you really thought was important, or something that, you know, you were sort of passionate about in regards to what you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny that we started with the origin story, because I've got, speaking of MRR, I have a distinct memory, and my memory is not that good, but I've got a distinct memory of being in that original Newfangled office in Providence, the one where I first applied to get the job, and in Eric's office, and he had a big whiteboard, and we were a web dev company. We were a web dev partner for agencies from 1995 to 2015. That's what we did for a living, right? We were a dev shop, like a serious dev shop, and it was great. Loved it. And we built our own CMS, as one did in those days. It was called WebTop first, then Newfangled CMS. And this is, you know, back in 01, when we launched the CMS, we had like a couple clients on it. It was like, okay, hosting's a thing. And Eric said, okay, here's, if we charge like $100 a month for hosting and do some services in it, like, if everyone pays that, like, he drew this chart, like, here are expenses and here's the increasing revenue. It's not called MRR then. Right. At this point, magic happens, because this eclipses our expenses. I was like, wow, like, that's amazing. So I started thinking a lot about MRR and believing the promise of MRR in 2001.
Right.
And that was always a dream we were kind of chasing. And you know, we were always chasing. That reality never came true. But we were always trying to figure out ways to get to it. And there was a really significant breakthrough that happened that unlocked it for me. I can get into that if you want, or
yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, was it the idea of switching over from being a web dev shop to what Newfangled is currently today? It was easier to sort of curate those services into a monthly or annual package type of thing.
Sorta. And so one, MRR is not for everybody, right? But it is for a lot more people than I think execute on it.
Who do you think it's for? Or maybe who do you think it's not? I don't know which one is easier to answer.
I'm gonna answer that through this journey. Okay, is that cool?
Yeah, of course.
So Yeah. And in 2015, we realized like the website's not the hard part anymore. All this other stuff that we help with too, like content, email, like all the biz dev stuff. That's what all of our clients are struggling with. Like they're cool with building the website. They don't need help with that anymore. That's not the big mystery. That's fine. But the hard stuff now for our clients, now let me be really clear about this. Our clients are agencies. They do not have very complex websites, right? There are still many agencies who thrive building insanely complex web systems. And I think there'll always be a great need for that. But, agencies weren't worried about the tech for their own site come 2015, right? And so we adopted EOS right then. I'd been going to strategic coach with Blair for a couple of years at that point. Like my mind was getting reworked. And it was always like this, like, what's the hard stuff? What are the hard problems that your clients can't figure out? And those are the hard problems. And so we reinvented the whole company over the course of 2016 and never looked back. But when MRR really clicked for us, and the way, then the answer to the question, the key for whether or not MRR is an option for you as an organization, whomever you may be, has to do with how you can create value in the marketplace, right? And why you exist as an organization. So the lesson we learned pretty slowly, was that people came to us because they wanted the marketing to work. Like, okay, well, rewind 9 years, 8 years, whatever it is, all right, well, you need a content strategy. So I'll help you with the content strategy. We'll get an email tool spun up for you. We'll integrate the website, get the tech going. We weren't doing paid media at this point, and we'll give you the plan. You can go with it. 3 months, couple thousand, whatever it is a month. Cool. Like, yeah, great. That sounds amazing. And so we'd do that. And, after a number of reps of this, would give them this great plan. They'd be psyched. They'd feel really good about the return on that because, they got what we told them they'd get.
Right.
But then 6-9 months later, we'd check back in and they didn't do any of it. They didn't do any of it. And so for us, we realized over time, and this is still evolving, was that the way we need to create value in the marketplace, the value we can contribute to the marketplace, is by putting our clients, when they decide to be a Newfangled client, putting them into a system that is going to come as close as we can to guaranteeing that this is actually going to work for them. And what that's meant over the years is taking more and more off their plate. We can't rely on them to create content. We can't rely on them to run their email platform. We can't rely on them to run their paid media. We can't rely on them to design any of those assets. We can't rely on them to write any of those assets. We just build more and more and more away.
Because you're right.
Yeah, right. But it just took us a long time to learn that lesson. And and the other thing is that the sentiment shifted radically over the years, and it's continuing to shift. Like agencies, I'm talking about creative and digital agencies, they used to be just so precious about like, well, we have to do this. This is us. This is our project. We have to do this in-house. And that need isn't there anymore. More and more agencies are like, you know what? No, we need to do client work to pay the bills. Like, you do that stuff for us. Like,
yeah, I agree. I think a lot of owners are coming to the realization that they can't see the forest of the trees when it comes to their own stuff. And it's much more acceptable to go outside and use experts, like Newfangled. So
much more, but it was a little taboo before, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. That worm is turned for sure.
To the degree that like people like wouldn't have a contract, but like they don't tell anybody about this. Like we don't want you talking about this.
Right.
Fine. I don't care, but that never happens. I haven't heard that in years, that request, So is MRR right for your organization? Not crop favor, but generally speaking. Yeah, it's about thinking about why you exist and what do you how much work do you really need to do in order for the thing you create to actually survive and thrive and grow. And so many shops that just do the initial project and then walk away, they're leaving a huge amount of value for the client on the table. And again, value pricing is not about the value you derive, it's about the value you create.
Right.
And the more value you create, the more it's going to come back to you if you build the business properly,
or value you solve for. Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so that's really the key to MRR. Like what do you need to do for how long to make the thing work?
Yeah. So can you tell me, I'm going to get a little bit into some financial operational stuff.
Yeah,
and I know that the people actually in charge of this are not here on this call, but I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about, from your perspective, like how you calculate your monthly, your MRR as a bootstrapped agency owner, and maybe what metrics you use to sort of track it
Okay. Yeah.
from your perspective. Now, I don't need like from the CFO or the COO or like whoever runs that for you, the director of ops, but like what metrics do you see as an owner in terms of MRR,
Yeah.
and how do you track it?
I'm on the much more involved side as far as owners go in terms of finances and that kind of thing. And like I just love financial modeling and business modeling. Like that's kind of my sweet spot. And so I'm pretty close to it
Great.
and have been. And so one metric, and speaking with some other friends that we share, and this might be true for you too, a metric that we had always targeted was we'd like to build up the MRR base to match 75% of expenses, to have 75% of expenses met by MRR. That was a goal for a long time. And I tell you what, that's a stiff goal.
Yeah.
Partially because,
don't do that.
we work in 15-month programs. So if you want to like work with Newfangled, it's an initial 15-month program. That's not MRR. That's the initial program.
Right.
So that doesn't count towards it. MRR only happens monthly recurring revenue.
Month 16 and beyond.
Yeah, after the first program. The first program is just new project revenue. Then now, technically, if someone would like to look at our books and like for an acquisition, that kind of thing, well, yeah, the way we bill everything is MRR. And
You could do it that way, 100%.
You could. So if I wanted to sell, I'd say, yeah, it's MRR for day one. But to measure conservatively and honestly, no, it's not. It starts month 16. And so to build up that means that, okay, first of all, we gotta deliver in the first thing, because if we don't deliver in the first term, there is no month 16, right? And by the way, month 16 used to be month 4, used to be month 7, used to be month 13. Now it's month 16. And that's just we talk about that if you want, but that's not directly related to MRR. And so what's also great about MRR, what I love about it, if you're running your business to be an MRR based business, you've got to earn your keep every month. You've got to kill it performance-wise, because those clients are going to take off. If you're not delivering, they're not going to stick around.
And that was a question I had for you, especially in your line of work. Like with the consulting, well, you guys actually are also doing a lot more of the work than you used to, because you used to be a lot more consultative. But are you? I mean, do you find that strategies? I guess my question is like, what effective strategies have you found in terms of balancing your need for growth around MRR with profitability around it? I guess asked a different way is, in your line of work, are you trying to graduate people at that 15-month thing? Are you saying to people, hey, look, this is 15 months long, because when you get to the end of this, you kind of should have either yes, you're going to continue to use us, or we've kind of shown you all the things you would have to do to kind of replace us at this point.
Right.
And is that a goal of Newfangled's within the construct of an MRR structure?
Right. Yeah. So no, it's not.
Sorry, it took me a really long time to get that question out.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. What I say, and I just said it an hour ago on a prospect call. We are built on lifelong relationships, right? But that's only going to happen if we have cash flow positive relationships for our clients.
Sure.
If they're making more money than they're spending, and significantly more, then it's the easiest check they write. And when we get to that easiest check they write point, like they just want us to handle it, because even though they're seeing how we're doing it, and we're not like hiding anything, we're fully open with everything we're doing. In order for them to like do all the things we're doing, they need to hire a bunch of people.
Sure.
And they just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Some do, and some say, okay, we got this. And fine. If that's the deal, if at the end of 3 months, like you've learned and you can run this on your own, great. And sometimes they run part of it and we run parts of it. There are lots of different ways it can work. But it's not really an education program because of the nature of the problem we're solving. The problem our clients have is not just education. It's manpower.
Sure.
And the other thing is, in our world, and I'm sure this is true for all of our clients, but like what works in terms of paid media, SEO, email, website biz dev best practices, all this stuff, like it changes all the time.
Sure.
And so it's just a constantly a moving target. And so that's the nature of our business.
Yeah.
One thing that's been a really powerful tool for us, and I recommend, is that there's the initial program, but then after the initial program, as I mentioned, it turns very flexible, very, very flexible. And we used to say, okay, here's year one. And then at the end of year one, we talk about year two. And it's like another big contract to sign, right? And that was, our renewal rates were crap then, because we're just forcing a really big decision.
Right.
You know, David Baker talks all the time about how many owners decide to sell when their lease is up and they have to renew a 5-year lease on their office space. And they're like, oh, 5 years. Like, do I really want to get another 5 years on this? And like, and so what we learned is like, don't force the big decision. At the very beginning of the relationship, force the big decision, but then don't.
Right.
And you know, if you have to sign a year-long contract in order to hold on to these people, your business isn't run right. Yeah, your business isn't run right in the first place. You know, like, show up, do your job, kick butt, and just earn it each month so they want to stay with you.
Yeah.
You know, so that not forcing a big decision was a key finding that had a radical impact on our renewal rates and retention rates.
Right. So let's talk about the big decision a little bit. I mean, how do you deal with clients who might be hesitant to commit to a 15-month program? Or how do you negotiate with clients who may say to you, oh, well, you know, because this is so long and so much work, you know, can we get a discount on the price? Yeah. Do you come across those things during your sales?
Of course.
Your sales experiences. How do you deal with that?
In terms of the benefit to the business, you know, and I'm using the general business. This might be the single greatest benefit of MRR. We now have more than 75% of our need is covered by MRR. We've got a roster of 80 clients at any given time. So it's a deep roster, all spending somewhere between $3,000 and $18,000 a month.
Okay.
Right. And so our net new business need is pretty low. And that makes it so we only take on 15 clients a year. And so that allows me to be super selective.
Right.
And that has all kinds of amazing, I mean, that's power. Like, oh my God, like, I've been selling.
How long did it take you to build that stable?
Yeah. And let me explain the power thing. Like, I'm not on a power trip here, but I've been selling because I want to help. I want to educate here with this. And I'm obviously giving all this away. Meaning I'm giving you details.
Secret sauce time.
I've been selling since 2004. So it's 19 years. And man, I've done everything. Like I used to, we could talk about like how I said, I've been the boots on the ground. I've literally knocked on the doors. I've offered to bring people cakes so they take a meeting with me way back when. Like, I did it all. I didn't care. And so now to be able to have this leverage in the buy-sell relationship, just like, it's still a dream to me every single day. It's just amazing. But the main benefit of having that leverage is that you can really focus on, well, who are the people who can actually help? Who are the ones we can really help, and just get kind of ridiculously specific about that. And I say no. I turn down, I mean, the average client relationship is typically worth about $500,000. So with that rubric over the lifetime, not year one, I turn down probably 3 to 5 million of potential revenue every single month. Like, if people who want to work with us, but I tell them no, because I don't think we can actually help them.
Right.
You know, and I hate that there are people who've hired us that we didn't help. We tried. We always try our damnedest, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sure. And we've learned a lot about who we can help and who we can't help. And that allows me to say no. And yeah, when people negotiate on price or even like basic contract terms, or timing, like duration, it's just a very fast no.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. I guess maybe the better way to ask it is sort of, how do you demonstrate the value to somebody who's seeing a 15-month engagement in front of them? Like you said, like putting them in that big decision up front. So there's a big decision in front of somebody.
Yes.
So instead of them being like challenging you on it and then you saying, okay, well, you're just not for me. Like, what if you think they are for you, that you can make an impact, but they're just a little bit it's unusual for agencies to have sort of hey, we're going to start with 15 months of engagement and we're skipping dating. We're going out now. We're steady. And you know, that's,
I mean, there are incredible obstacles we put up, you know, but we're not playing games. You know, it's the obstacles we put up is because we are on a mission to figure out who we can actually help, and then to make sure they're in the best position to be helped. And the truth is, it takes 10 people on the Newfangled side per client to get that engine turning over. It's a lot of like human labor. It's a ton of work, and it takes a long time to actually figure out the recipe. Like, okay, what combination of email and paid and content also actually gets the right people showing up looking for conversations on a regular basis? Like, that is a mystery, and we are hired to solve that mystery by firms who have not solved it for themselves, which is most firms out there, right? And so why do people, why are they willing to like pay us $10,000 a month for 15 months and like get into a contract to say that? Like, yeah, that's a huge amount of money, ridiculously long amount of time, right? But that money represents the amount of work it takes, the amount of time it takes to actually get the job done. And if I said to them, okay, I'll do it in 7 months for $8,000, at the end of that 7 months, $8,000, they wouldn't have gotten ROI. Right? It's like, how long do you need to run in order to get the benefit? That's the thing. And it's our responsibility as value providers to put our clients in situations in which they will succeed and do everything we possibly can to come as close to guarantee that is possible, like I said before. And so why are they doing this? So this is the word we haven't mentioned yet, which, you know, took us 35 minutes. Congrats to us.
Sorry,
it's all about
Mark can edit it.
The whole, right. The whole thing is positioning.
Yeah.
The number one reason we turn people down is positioning. You know, the audience isn't targetable enough.
That they don't have, right? That they don't have one.
Well, yeah, and one that we believe we can market. Not that it's not marketable by somebody else, but that we believe we can market.
Right.
And so because we are so tightly focused, we solve a very specific problem for a tiny little market set, like creative and digital agencies between roughly, usually typically 5 and 100 employees. Like that's it. Mostly in North America, a little bit of Europe, you know, so it's a pretty specific set of people. And so I heard this twice this week from really great firms who showed up at a doorstep this week. And what I heard twice was like they just love our site, the way we speak to them. They feel so called out on our site. We have a page on our site called the About You page, and it's our $10 million page. I can 100% easily attribute $10 million of revenue to the About You page on our site, because I can write that About You page, and when the right you shows up, they know I am speaking to their soul.
100%.
You know, and that's what opens up the pocketbook. That's like, okay, this person gets me more than I get myself, and I believe them.
Yeah.
You know,
and that was something, it's funny. That's something you told me, full disclosure to everybody. It was Mark's idea that I start Wheelhouse over 3 years ago. Took me to dinner. We were in Banff, and
that was a got me
drunk and said, you're an idiot if you don't do this. All right, let's do it. But no, I think positioning is super important, and you know, you'd be surprised how much business is out there. Even if you think you're going super small and super targeted, right, and super intentional around who your client segmentation is, just so important. That's so true. So important. So you started making this transition and really focusing on MRR in particular around 2016. You started to make this sort of transition through EOS, through Blair, talking to David more, and really rejiggering the entire business around it. As you got deeper into it and it started to become more successful, it started to eat into that 75% plus of your expenses, and you started to approach, surpass that number. Was part of that success around, you know, adjusting or diversifying revenue streams around your services, you know, productizing them a little bit more maybe, or providing people with additional or complementary things that you were doing originally that could sort of feed on to enhancing and growing those things?
100%. And what I love about all the questions you're asking, you're really doing a great job with this, is it keeps getting back to the same fundamental points. And so, yes, you know, when we started this, I think it was $3,000 in like 3 months. That was the program, right? And now it's 10 for 15. Like that's a lot of growth. We weren't just jacking the price up. What we realized, like, oh, they need us to do that thing. We have to do that. Oh, we need to adopt this, because like this stuff over here isn't working like it used to, and we need this to complement that. And so over the years, we've added more services. We've done what the theme inside Newfangled is: do more of the doing, do more of the doing. We're still providing all and more of the consulting, way more than we ever did, but we're also providing so much more of the execution. And so that's the deal. Like, the way Newfangled has grown and we've changed tremendously over 28 years. But the way we've grown, the way we've decided to pivot is we look at we make progress. What's the next thing holding our client back? And when we see patterns, oh, all 5 of these clients are being held back by this thing. Let's conquer that thing.
Were there any services that you noticed that you were like, I know they need it, but it's not us?
Yes, social media.
Okay.
Well, not even I know they need it. I don't think they really need it. I
Right.
don't. So again, what's the value we can create for us? And that's the question you have to ask. That if I could get like drive 1 point home, always ask what is the best value we can create for our clients? What real problem are we solving? And if you're not solving a really hard, really complex, really messy, high stakes problem, you don't belong in business.
Yep.
And when you don't belong in business, you're gonna get ejected. And that
Darwinism will take over.
Yes, it will take over. If you're not solving the hard stuff, you're not going to be doing much of anything. But the hard stuff is scary. It's scary.
Sure.
Like we've had a lot of like, are we really going to like solve that problem? And God, how do we do that? And so, but that's what refines it. And so,
and is that ever evolving? I mean, have you taken things on that you thought you would be good at, and it turns out it didn't work out, and vice versa? Were there things like you were like, well, we'll try it, but I doubt we're really going to be able to. We probably won't be able to be great at it, and then it turned out actually you guys were able to actually really incorporate it pretty easily.
There hasn't been much of that.
Okay.
Which is weird.
That's great, though. I mean, well, your planning is awesome.
A better, more interesting answer. Well, because again, it's pattern matching. We've got these 80 clients. We see, okay,
right,
8 of them have this issue. If 8 of them have this issue, it's probably an issue.
Right.
And so, and again, it's back to positioning, like solving the same problems for the same kinds of people. You just learn more and more and more and more and more, and it makes the risks less risky.
It's like you can predict the trend earlier on in the trend, right?
Yeah.
So like as it starts to take off, the more times you've seen it, like the earlier on you can detect kind of seeing the same thing happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I'll give you a little inside information. We've recently in our offsite, our EOS offsite in January, we came up against the next thing. The next thing we realized, okay, this is the problem. This is the thing we need to solve. And it's sales process. It's sales process. So we're held accountable to sales outcomes, but the work we do generates opportunity.
Correct.
Generation. And so the space between the moment the opportunity is generated and the close is a massive chasm, right? And without pitching handles a lot of that stuff. And the day we realized this, I called Blair that day. I was like, okay, the Newfangled truck is bumping into the one without pitching wall. We need to talk about this.
Right.
And we've had so many amazing conversations about this. And what we realized is like, wow, there's a huge amount of gray space between the two firms. And so we're getting into the tech and looking at, okay, how are you using CRM? We had a client only webinar last week about this. How are you using CRM? What does your sales process look like? Like what are your goals? Like, what are you looking for here? So, Blair and Shannon, all the great people over there, like they're about, pricing and closing and all of that stuff. Like that's their thing. We're never going to touch that, but there's a ton on the sales process side and the sales tech side that we are getting into. And cool. And that's really exciting to have the next frontier right in front of us.
That's very cool.
That's thrilling.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How do you forecast your MRI for the upcoming year? I know you said, you have a target in terms of the number, in terms of its relevancy to relativity to your expenses. But like what steps do you generally take to ensure that you're meeting like revenue goals and staying on track? Financially, again, you're bootstrapped. A lot of us are bootstrapped out there. So profitability is our capital injections. It's how we grow. It's how we give more money to our people. It's how we hire better people. It's how we do, bigger and better things. It's how we take that next step. Right.
Yeah.
How do you stay on top of that as an owner? Again, I know you've got a lot of great infrastructure and a great management team around you. What do you see sort of in your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month as you sort of track that?
Yeah. I'm fortunately restraining myself from not pulling up our forecast sheet and just showing it to you, but I want to.
The entire audience is like, which YouTube channel was that? Let me.
Exactly. Another amazing benefit of MRR is it's plywood, right? When you've got 80 clients paying you a set amount of money each month, each one of those clients is a layer in the plywood. It's not one board that can break or a few boards that can break in a deck. It's plywood. And so it can flex. It can have some expansion and contraction, but still gonna be a solid floor.
Right.
Right. And that is so powerful. That is transformational in a business.
Mhm.
It allows you to do so many things. And another one of the key benefits is forecasting. You can say, okay, here's the base of the 80, and we're going to assume this much attrition each month. And
Mhm.
we're going to assume we're going to sell this many services back into the client base each month. And we're going to assume that we're going to generate this much in net new project sales from new clients each month. And we're going to map all that out. And we do. We've already got the 2024 forecast done.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, I was curious, like on January, and I don't know if you do this, but like if on January 1st, let's throwing out, these are completely BS numbers because Newfangled's a lot bigger than this. But like, let's say your goal for next year was like to do $1 million of revenue. Like on January 1st, what percentage of your MRR do you want to see booked against that $1 million?
Well, the running MRR any given month, no matter what part of the year it is, our goal is that 75 should be the basement. 75% of that is the basement. Yeah. So the MRR is covering the lion's share for certain.
And do you also because it is so actually after they finish the 15-month program, what generally is the length of engagement in terms of is it like another 3-month rolling 3-month thing, or is it month to month, or
30 days
month to month? Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And then how much lead time do you need for clients to give you to opt out?
A full month notice. So like so if you want May to be your last month, well, let's say if you want June to be your last month, you need to let us know before May
1st. Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we need, just a full month's notice, basically a full external month notice.
Okay.
Right.
I loved your plywood analogy. I was wondering, like, it makes it very strong as you lay that foundation. Like, I get it. Right. So there's like, one thing is no more important than all the other things around it. So together there's a lot of strength there. I'm wondering and I'm not saying that this happens, but when you've seen trends where there has been some breakage, not every client stays forever and whatever. Do you also see that in like groups and patterns amongst groups of clients where you're like, oh, they're actually that 8 out of the 80, they needed something, or for some reason there was a pattern there? Or do you see it more like as opposed to the plywood thing in terms of growth, where it's very much together? Do you see breakage, if you want to call it that, in like one-offs, or do you see it in patterns? I'm curious.
They do tend to happen in batches, right? And so there'll be months with no cancellations.
Right. I'm sure most months, right? I mean, yeah.
Well, no, there's always something each month. There's always something with that big of a base. There's always something. And a cancellation could be, we're not going to do this service anymore, but we're going to stick on these other 3. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing. We go from 10K a month, 15 months. That's it. That's the only way in to here's the a la carte pricing for every single service, and we need 30 days notice. It goes from like infinitely rigid to infinitely flexible, right? Which is a really interesting flip.
And does your curriculum over the 15 months start off very rigid and get more and more flexible so that it's very seamless into the flexible month to month at the end?
No, it's the 15 months are just going.
So it's like going to school.
It's like everything. We're doing all of it. And then by the end of those 15 months, like, okay, for you, here are the things that are working really great. These things aren't so much. And so like, let's, most people end up staying on most things most of the time. So it's usually like, we're just going to keep on going. Right. Yeah. That's what usually happens. But, there could be anything from like, we're all done to we're going to do half the stuff, whatever. But your question about like, do we see patterns in the cancellations, the breakage, right? And I like you talking about breakage. That's cool. We tend to not see patterns among cancellations, but there are batches, right? Okay. But like why, these 3 people reduce services in this month, like there's rarely a reason.
But is there like a common line through the 3? Something like, usually, no, it's used kind of all over. Okay.
No. Yeah. And we generate revenue. We have 7 different kinds of revenue streams. So when we get that a la carte menu, there are 7 things on it.
Right.
And so you think of 7 different revenue generating streams across 80 clients, like there's lots of room for randomness there.
Right.
There could be patterns. I just don't know them. AI will tell me eventually.
Exactly. Mark, this was awesome. Thank you so much. A lot here, a lot to unpack. I think for those of you out there who listen to this, I think, and Mark, you can definitely tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but highest level MRR is a simplifier for you as an owner and operator. It's a simplifier for you financially and operationally. It helps you make better decisions. It gives you more optionality. It gives you time to make decisions as leadership. And it gives you something repeatable that is at worst accurate and at best precise about the future. And I think every owner's looking for a little bit of insight towards that horizon, right?
And that's beautifully put. And it holds you accountable.
Ooh, and that's probably the most important part.
That's
a great point.
You gotta earn your dinner month in, month out.
Absolutely. Well, we always end the show with the same question, which I usually don't get to ask. So this is a very must have been a big fire wherever Bart was.
Seriously.
No, the question we ask all our guests is, what are you obsessing on right now? Can be anything you want. What's grabbed your attention? What's got you going? It can be literally anything, pop culture or work, or doesn't matter, anything you want.
I'm going to try to say this without tearing up, but I'm obsessing on this one. This is Iris.
Oh, Iris.
She turns 13 today.
Happy birthday to Iris. 13, Mark. Holy cow.
Yeah, she's my middle. My oldest is 15, but 13. Awesome. Oh, 13.
Congratulations.
That's a benchmark. That's big.
That's a big one. That's a big one. That's a big one. Congratulations. Yeah. That is a great one. That's probably the best answer we've had so far on the what.
Because you asked it. See, you need to ask this question more often.
That's right. See, Bart's would have not been sentimental in tone, so we wouldn't have got that. Mark, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. This was absolutely awesome. And we look to have you on again, and can't wait to see you in New Orleans.
Yeah, that'll be a blast. Real honor to be here. Excellent job moderating here, Jason. Like, really well done. I hope I didn't come off as arrogant or anything like that. I was trying to be honest and like get into the real details about what I believe about this stuff. And
that's why we want you on the show, Mark. You know, that's one of the reasons I definitely wanted John. I mean, I love your perspective on things, and I also love your conviction. I think that's a big part of what we're trying to get out to the folks who are out there who may listen to this too, is like we're trying to bring on people who are very passionate about how they do what they do, not just what they do. So worked out awesome. Beignets.
Yes.
Is Laura going or no?
Yeah, she'll be there. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. We can reprise our Cafe du Monde.
For sure. Whenever you guys have the time. It's a quick trip for me. I'm in Sunday. I'm out Tuesday night. I can't stay, unfortunately. But yeah,
we'll definitely make beignets happen.
Cool, man. Feel free to take off. I will figure out how to get us out of here, and he will edit this. But thank you so much for the time.
This is a blast. Really good seeing you, man.
Thank you, man. Later. Bye.